Here he comes, here he comes.
Boogeyman living in a scary house, telling us scaries with a stitched up mouth.
Welcome to the Scary Show, the home of grunge storytelling. The Scary Show is proud to partner with Dubby Energy, the premier energy drink alternative. If you're like me, you've been consuming at least one of those other energy drinks at least once a day, spending anywhere from $2 to $3 a can. But with Dubby, you get a whole month's supply in just one tub for close to $25 cheaper. And it gets even better. Use promo code TheScaryShow for an additional 10% off.
My situation is almost comical. My family have always told me to avoid El Cucuy because of reason X, Y, and Z. I was made to believe that this monster would get me if I didn't behave and do as they told. It would have made more sense for me to listen until I got old enough to understand why they warned me about him. While we call him El Cucuy, most call him the Boogeyman. You might think of him as some fictional character made to make disobedient children do as they're told, or even try to explain him away as some cold-blooded killer. If only it was that easy to explain. I'll do my best to explain how I met and survived meeting the Boogeyman. It started out a few years back when my old friend Francisco laid a curse on me. He saw me going on to date this woman of his dreams as the ultimate indignation on his character and our friendship. To him, me pursuing Natalia was more than inconsiderate. It was betrayal. And thus, he laid a curse on me, proclaiming the night that I planned to propose to Natalia that I was willfully stealing her away from him, and that my lust, not love, would undo me. You are no hermano of mine, Omar. You care for no one but yourself and your lust. It was never enough that women threw themselves at you. You had to go for the one, the only woman I ever loved. I tried to reason with him, but his mind and lips were set. Francisco, I will hear none of it, Omar. I offer you everything you could dream of and more. Cars, money, other women. But you choose her? No. We are finished. My hands will not cleanse you of your lust. You must contend with your actions by any means. And with that, he left. He left me and Natalia along with his date. He had been dating Natalia's friend Maribel for 2 years now, with the intent of getting closer to Natalia to return her back to him, despite them never properly being a couple in the first place. Natalia went on a date with him once and was immediately disinterested, but that never stopped his obsession. Francisco was a man fueled by his gluttony above all else. Francisco came from a family of wealth. His grandfather controlled much of the wealth in Mexico through his money in telecommunications and electronics. He came from a family of millionaires and billionaires, while he himself only tended to leech from their wealth and status, while I spent my time trying to be a doctor. He found himself engaging in every way of extravagance and that one could think of. He would pay for expensive trips, things we would never need or use, and nights with escorts that he would later try to forget and wipe evidence of from his bank statements. What I never could shake from my experience with him growing up was how he always was seemingly jealous of me. He seemed to want my life more than his own. I come from a modest home, and my parents both worked under his family in one way or another. His family took great care of mine, and we became friends as a result of us being so close. However, we grew apart as we got older, and he wanted to keep acting like a child while I was more focused on becoming a doctor and healing those less fortunate than us both. It always seemed like Francisco had no care for anything that did not catch his fancy. It either entertained and pleased him, or it didn't exist. And if he grew disinterested in it, he left it abandoned. This was the case for an old house he had left out in the old ranchitos of northern Mexico. He sent me a message 2 months after the event, trying to apologize for his actions, and wanted to meet at the old villa we used to stay at on vacation in Zacatecas. I was reluctant to go, but my mother thought it would be best to try and heal my friendship with him. So, with much hesitation, I made the trip there. Natalia warned me about going there, but I knew that my mother and his family would distance themselves from me if I didn't try. I arrived a few hours before nightfall, just with enough time to catch Francisco before he had become fully drunk. He had just made 2 margaritas and was holding one for me at the door to the villa. He greeted me with one near his lip and another in his hand, stretched out to greet me and provide me with the gateway into his intoxicated world. "Ah, Omar, I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up." I tried to shrug off his doubts. It seemed like he wouldn't really care if I showed up or not. As we both got older, Francisco was rarely sober, so this was expected. What I should have also expected was for something to be wrong with my drink. As a sign of goodwill, I took the drink from his hand. I would have come here sooner, but they had me working long hours further south near Tabasco. "I'm assuming this is for me?" Omar laughed. "But of course, I wouldn't want to be drunk alone." He gestured for me to follow him to the pool. "Come, let's drink to a new life near the water, while we clear the air." I made my way to the surface of the pool and began to drink. Immediately I noticed a hint of cinnamon on the back end of my throat and my nose as I continued to sip. Whoever made this drink knew to hide the smell and taste of cinnamon well. The drink was poisoned and was set with a sedative made for me to pass out. I almost immediately began to fade out and lose consciousness. I felt woozy as Omar slapped his hand across my back with laughter, sending me crashing face first into the pool. Within seconds, I blacked out. I woke up wet inside a dark room and immediately found myself coughing. Whoever did this planned for me to stay at this villa and not leave alive. I could hear Francisco's voice as he was talking to what seemed to be a woman and a man. The woman's voice sounded like the old housekeeper for the villa, while the man's voice sounded barely human. Francisco stumbled in, choking. "You know, I couldn't seem to pull you out of that water myself. But my friend pulled you out just fine. He told me he'd rather you be awake and aware of the brutal death he's going to give you." Francisco began to grow more agitated. "You know, Natalia always seemed to care more for you than me. I don't know what more a woman could want than money, power, and fame. I had it all, Omar, but I still wanted her. I only wanted her above all else." He began to stomp as he threw his glass onto the stone floor. "And you took her from me! That bitch was supposed to be mine, not yours!" He picked up some of the broken glass and started to carve cuts into my side. "You feel that, Omar? That burning sensation from me cutting into you as you cut into me? That's much nicer than what my friend is going to do to you." I cried out as he drove the glass deeper into my skin. "What, friend? What are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? What are you going to do?" He dropped the glass in frustration. "No, this is no fun. I want to hear your screams as he tears into your flesh as you tore Natalia from my arms. I want him to violate you worse than you did me." He began to call out to the window. "Señor Cucuy! He's all yours." A shadow figure with inhuman arms and a pale white face resembling porcelain showed itself in the doorway as Francisco stumbled his way out. "See you in hell, cabrón!" With that, Francisco left the room, and the Boogeyman slowly crept towards me, clicking as it made its way closer. He began to speak as he came within a half-meter of me.
I see. A specimen that has been corrupted by lust. You will make for a tasty treat.
The Boogeyman began to reach its hand down towards my crotch, creeping its sharp nails across my skin, smelling my body as its hands skinned and clawed on its way down.
Are you ready to beg for your death, Omar?
I winced as he drew his hand further and further down until finally it stopped at my waist.
Something is peculiar. You do not smell the rossin. You are not sinful enough for me to take your life.
That's when it hit me. Francisco lied to the Boogeyman to try and get it to kill me and leave no trace. I think we were lied to. We were both lied to. The Boogeyman quickly turned its head around to look towards the floor. Francisco had been listening in the entire time and could be heard stumbling and cursing as he tried to run. With near inhuman speed, the Boogeyman rushed out to the room in pursuit of Francisco. I found myself able to move once the creature was no longer on top of me. He chased Francisco down in no time. I tried to peer over, but they were both beyond my view. I could hear Francisco cry out for help, as I felt every bone in my body screaming to run. I heard the Boogeyman's voice now.
You lied to me. No one lies to me. You lied about Omar being consumed by lust to hide your own gluttony, and for that you must be punished.
I couldn't see what happened, but I could hear Francisco's screams that his organs were torn apart, followed by his bones. I ran as quickly as I could back to my car as I heard the sound of bones breaking and him screaming for his life, his mother, and his father. I drove off back the way I came and never looked back. I heard from an old family member that the housekeeper was put into a hospital, likely because no one believed her story and assumed she was traumatized by someone killing Francisco. His family wanted to blame me, but the housekeeper's story quickly made them rule me out, as it made no sense for me to be able to do on my own. According to the housekeeper, Francisco was immediately castrated upon the attack beginning, followed by the creature breaking each of his limbs one by one with inhuman strength. Finally, from behind a wall, the housekeeper watched in horror as the creature unhinged its mouth and raked Francisco's dying body inside of it, finishing the job by licking the walls and floor clean of his blood and organs. I tried to forget about Francisco, but I could never seem to forget that night, even on the wedding day that I had with Natalia. One thing is for certain, when I have my kids in the future, I will warn them to always try to be true, but most of all, never lie to El Cucuy.
If you enjoy the stories you find here, please subscribe and click the top bell for all notifications so that you never miss an episode of this scary show. Hit the like button. Think of it like applause at the end of a show. Questions, comments, suggestions, let me know down below. And if you wouldn't mind, share this video so that others can discover the scary show. Thank you for watching. And remember, the scary show always answers the fans, unless YouTube hides your comments from me.